Hello, everyone. Allison, I know we're still seeing people trickling. You want to give me the green light whenever we're fully off and running? Or was that the green light? Susan, do I interpret that as a green light?
I would give it maybe another minute.
We'll give it a minute. Great.
Yeah, I can still see
For everyone
people
trickling in.
trying to get in.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So for everyone trickling in, appreciate you and your time, and we'll kick off in 1 minute. Hello, folks. Happy Thursday, and thank you all for being here. My name is Viraj, and we at Finch are really excited to present this webinar on the business of AI for personal injury. So thank you to Bridge Tower Media and Lawyers Weekly, especially for facilitating. Quick introduction my way. So my name is Viraj. I'm co-founder and CEO of Finch. We power pre-litigation for personal injury firms across the country with a combination of US-based paralegals and AI agents that help with claim opening, record retrieval, police reports, liens, and demands. But I'm joined on the Zoom by an amazing set of tech leaders across legal tech, and I'll hand off to our illustrious moderator, Susan, to kick things off and introduce everyone.
So hello, everybody. I'm Susan Bocamazzo. I'm the managing director here at Bridge Tower for the legal brands. I'm actually a lawyer myself, and probably about 90% of my friends are lawyers too. So I'm familiar with a lot of the issues we're going to be talking about here today. To kick things off, I want to introduce the rest of our panel. First up, and I'm going to have them each tell you a little bit about themselves. Sean.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sean Allen. I head up sales and marketing for Digital Owl. I've been here, actually one of the first employees here in the US. What we do at Digital Owl is we take medical records and we make them come to life to be able to do your analysis for the case. So we take AI and we analyze all of those records and provide insights, chronologies, things like that to allow you to get better action in your case.
Thank you. And then next, Jim.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jim Garrett. I'm the CTO of Assembly Software. We develop a product called Neos, which is legal case management software. It comes from the company who had Needles and TrialWorks. I've been doing technology for close to 30 years, so not a young man anymore. Neos is a great product for PI. It's workflows to help people manage cases from intake to settlement and cradle to grave, and we support most of the workflow with AI underpinnings to help really get operational efficiency out of it.
And JP.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. My name is JP Sun. I'm the Chief Legal Officer at Verbit. So Verbit is a global leader in AI-powered transcription, captioning, and legal technology solutions. We serve various verticals, including education, media, government, and of course, legal. Our legal advisor deposition assistant solution that combines our leading speech-to-text technology with real-time AI insights. That'll enable our litigator clients to instantly search, summarize, extract key testimony from live and recorded depositions. An example of that would be flagging discrepancies between the live deposition testimony and the rest of the evidentiary record. So that the tool streamlines trial prep and discovery, essentially turning raw testimony into what we call actionable intelligence on the spot.
Thank you, and thank you all for joining us here today. Before we kick things off, just to let our attendees know that you can, we are taking questions. You can ask questions at any time through the Q&A bubble at the bottom of the screen. We'll answer them online here, time permitting. but all of our panelists will have access to the questions, and you are able to reach out to any of them after the program. The last slide will give you contact information for everyone. So let's get started. I want to start off with a couple of questions for the group as a whole. And the first question, legal as a whole, AI is just a huge issue. It's really sort of all people sort of talk about. So my first question is specific to the PI space. And how have you seen the PI space evolve over the last 2 years or so? And Viraj, I'm going to start with you, but I would like each of you to address this if you could.
Yeah, I'll go first. I mean, I'm biased coming from a tech perspective, but I don't think there's been a better time in history to be a personal injury attorney. The number of tools that have been built for y'all is massive. There's 4 people on this call with different tools, but there's another, 400 that aren't. And every firm is different, so it's not one size fits all. I think the reason you see this happening is because broadly, personal injury firms have been one of the most receptive audiences to modernization and AI. We've seen experimentation, not just for demands, which is where I think a lot of people have thought this started, but for intake, claim opening, record retrieval, depot summaries, like so much more. And I think it's setting the standard for other practice areas. I think what you've probably seen a lot of firms go through in the last 2 years is start to move from that like experimentation, let me test a couple things out, to really figuring out what their AI native stack of software and tools for the future are. And I think I'm seeing most firms start to make those decisions for the next year or two starting now.
Jim, what about you?
Yeah, I would agree with everything Viraj just said. And, realistically, PI specifically being contingency based is just right for, efficacy and operational efficiency to be augmented with AI. We're not necessarily after billable time. We're after optimization and the ability to have more cases come in and work them to their outcome more quickly with a similar cost basis. And, the PI firms have been adopting technology so rapidly aimed at that outcome. A lot of the things Viraj talked about as well as just at an intake saying, this is a type of case that lines with my practice, and historically we've settled in this range, and you should take this one right away. And putting information in front of humans so that they can operate their firm more effectively, more quickly, I think is what we're really seeing people adopt.
JP, how about you?
Yeah, so over the past several years, I've seen the litigation space change pretty dramatically. I'd probably point to three major trends. So the first is an explosion in data volume per case. And it's not necessarily been the last 2 years, but what used to be, say, a few hundred pages of medical records and some photos, now we're talking about terabytes of evidence, surveillance video from multiple angles, vehicle telemetry, GPS logs, wearable fitness trackers, even feeds for medical devices. It's this use of technology across the board. It just compounds on itself, and then you're seeing sort of that output all in the case data. And so all this data, it sort of becomes too much for traditional manual review, and we have e-discovery, but we're seeing the firms that are staying competitive. They're leaning on this AI-assisted analysis, whether that's sort of old school technology assisted review or the newer tools that you're seeing today from some of my colleagues on the panel, to really sift through that all, connect timelines and service the facts, that can really make or break your claim. Second, especially since COVID, we've seen the rise of remote testimony and virtual hearings. So depositions, as relevant to our product, they might be hybrid with witnesses, counsel, court reporters in different states, could be even different countries. That's created a demand for technology that can capture this testimony with high fidelity, make it instantly searchable, flag issues while the proceeding's still happening, and not like days later when the transcript finally arrives. I'd say the third thing is maybe shifting client expectations. So your injured clients, many of them, who've used technology themselves in their day-to-day lives, they may expect their legal team to communicate and update with them with that same speed and transparency that they're getting from their consumer apps. They may be using ChatGPT for their own personal reasons. So I'd say that probably puts more and more pressure on firms to streamline your workflows, keep your facts organized, and really turn around answers and responses quickly without sacrificing your traditional accuracy and care. So all of these trends, more data, faster remote proceedings, higher client service expectations. I'd say the firms that adapt best are the ones who use technology to keep pace. And that's not to replace your judgment, of course, but to make sure nothing gets missed and you're keeping that human connection with your clients front and center.
And Sean, from your perspective, how have you seen the space evolving over the last couple of years for PI
Mm.
lawyers?
Going last is tough because I agree with everybody. No, I mean, look, I just came back from the AAJ conference in San Francisco a few weeks ago, and everybody in that conference hall had AI, whether they do AI or not. There was a suit maker there, and he put AI on his booth just so that he can make sure that he could get people's attention. So it's everywhere. How do you sift through all of that? I mean, what we're seeing is a lot of firms, a lot of individuals trying out multiple different technologies. So how do you get through and sift through all the noise that's out there to get through what you could take advantage of? I also see, with some of the rules and kind of the reforms that are changing out there as far as cases go, there's a lot more discipline and data needed for cases. And the pinpoint of that data, what do you get out of that data to be able to have the edge over the defense, to be able to get the settlement higher, those type of things. So we're seeing a lot more of that. And it's basically become faster. So you're able to get through more cases now with AI and actually work on the cases that are going to net a positive result, whatever that could be for you guys in the end. So allow you to triage those things and get through those cases much, much, much faster. The only thing I will say that one of the big things I'm hearing and seeing right now, as we're kind of getting out of the pilot mode and we're getting into production. So pilots, people are kicking the tires still, but people are moving right into using it on a day-to-day basis. And so you have paralegals, some of the juniors afraid of this technology. What's it going to do to me? So I would, just ask people to think about when they're listening to these calls and listening to what's out there. Don't think about, it's going to replace you. Think about it's going to replace you if you don't know how to use it. People are becoming much, much more effective with AI if they use it responsibly. And they're using it sort of, to help fact check as well and do those types of things. So that's what I'm seeing out there. But it's, like I said, it's everywhere. You can't escape it now. If you're not using it, then, someone's leapfrogging you right now.
So adapting to AI can obviously be daunting, although several of you mentioned that PI firms have been kind of more receptive or early adopters. So can you talk a little bit about how you've seen firms take the first step here? And Jim, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. So the way that you probably want to walk into this is what I would say is start with an outcome in mind. Start with something that you want to aim AI at and have an expectation for how you think it's going to improve it. It's a mistake to sort of treat AI like it's a sentient magical unicorn that you can just sprinkle on your practice and suddenly you're just much better. You have to know your process, know how you work a case, know the workflow and say, I think I'm doing too much manual stuff here, or I spend too much time doing research here, or I wish I could get more automated communication to my clients at this part of the workflow. And then find the right AI tool to support your workflow and point it at that and measure the outcome. So I would say the best way to do it is to not just throw AI at your whole practice, but roll it out a part of your workflow at a time and make sure you're using the right tool for the outcome you want.
Sean, how about you?
So again, just to kind of echo what Jim's saying, you really have to find something that's tangible, something that's quantifiable. I also would find something that's on the back end of your process, not that's client facing, so that you can test it out and actually do the validation and the proof points before you, potentially could look foolish in front of one of your clients. You really have to do this quickly though. So analyze quickly, move on, fail fast, as they say, and don't be afraid to try it. But my biggest thing is do something internal in the back office end of things. So could it be, selfishly chronologies or medical summaries or things like that. that'll help you, maneuver through things faster versus looking at, potentially settlement numbers and things like that. Things are evolving though very, very quickly, and hopefully by the end we'll get into kind of where we see things going next too. So
Viraj.
Yeah, plus one and plus one. But maybe I'll take a different approach to my answer. I think maybe isolate why it's daunting. And it can be daunting for a couple different. There's the like, hey, I don't want to be the almost name drop the firm, but you don't want to be the like hallucination and a fake case law in your filing, and that's that could be the reason. It might be adoption is what we also see as a big reason. Is hey, this demo's super well and I like it, but convincing my whole staff to use it is going to be tough. And so think about like de-risking what your biggest issue there is. I think the um, starting with back office or what we'd call like low leverage work, to echo Sean, I think makes sense. Like the when we ask paralegals what they complain the most about, it's being on hold with an adjuster for 45 minutes to open claims, or it's following up on medical records. That's where our solutions tend to help. Or maybe the last other piece I'll share is uh, there's a lot of AI tools out there. There's also a few emerging AI services. We are clearly more in the service category than the tool category. That's not that service is the right move. I think for a lot of firms it's tool, but for others, if you're like, hey, I would have otherwise hired a person to go get this work done. I want the leverage of AI, but I still want the accountability of a person to go get the work done. You will see some of these human in the loop AI service solutions exist. So you still get most of the value of the automation, but you're doing it through a human. So you're still kind of feel a little more confident about the client interaction and those kind of pieces and how it works in your firm.
And JP, what about you? How have you seen firms take the first step?
Yeah, so I'll echo a lot with what everyone else said. So first, don't try to boil the ocean at the beginning. Big mistake would be going from zero, no AI to full AI, overhaul your firm in one shot. That could feel overwhelming. Start with something small, painful that everyone wishes was easier. Also echo, I think what Sean said. If you can do something in the back office where the stakes are not sky high, like sort of from the get-go, it'll make people comfortable. So sort of like think triage and discovery versus you using AI during a live trial, for example. I'd say the third thing is, your users are, in a sense, you're trying to get product adoption within your firm from your users, whether it's a firm of 5 or 500. You want to try to embed it into your existing workflows, make it as non-janky as possible, and that's just good product development, good sort of a good ethos to get people comfortable. And it's like it's not bothering them, it's not taking them away from their day to day, but they see it as something helpful and something positive.
So in your response, Viraj, you alluded to sort of the human element and personal injury of all practice, well, family law too, but personal injury, there's a real human element, right? Because you're dealing with injured people. How do you balance the efficiency you get from automation with maintaining that human touch that's so important for PI lawyers?
Yeah, I think the word we use internally is leverage rather than automation. And I think when you hear like human in the loop or JP's point on empowering your people, it's the North Star metric we use is maintaining an incredible client satisfaction rate. How many cases can our case managers and paralegals take on at the same time? And so leverage is like, how do I get them to be able to support these many cases incredibly well? And our number's gone from 80 to 100 when we started to 400 cases at the same time now. And that has mostly come from automating the tedium rather than, as Sean alluded to, the like client facing pieces of it. So we're deeply human on intake. We're deeply human and personal and interactive with every moment and touch point with a client throughout treatment. But the like 45 minutes on hold with an adjuster, we will automate away. Or the following up on medical records will automate away. The checking by crash every day for a police report and you're just entering a bunch of fields and refreshing it and doing that 20 times a day will automate away. And so again, like that, the value of the automation is not the automation itself, it's the leverage it gives for a human touch. But yeah, the idea of, I'll share a piece that so far I haven't come to terms with being an incredible, being the right move for a lot of PI firms is having someone call in and they're talking to a bot right away, and different firms will make different decisions. But if I've been through one of the worst accidents in my life and it's a system I don't understand, talking to a bot feels deeply impersonal. And I think it takes away the moment that for me is where you have a chance to connect with someone and be their client, not just in that moment, but for life and their family's client and those kind of things. So I think a good way to think about this is you as a firm, if you don't have it written down, think about writing down core values that you would want to be true today and are what makes you an incredible firm today and helps you grow today and clients love you. And AI should only be in service of those values. And so usually when firms already have those written down, those are very client-centric values. And if AI allows you to help them get to better outcomes or to be able to serve more clients and say yes to more that are at like potentially lower in damages or get their outcomes faster, those are great uses of it that keeps your story client-centric. But if it's removing some of the humanity from this process, then question whether it's super aligned every core value or not.
Thank you. Sean, can you talk a little bit about the advantages you can get from AI in reviewing medical records? Because that's obviously a huge part of a personal injury attorney's practice. You know, what can AI do better than the way folks are now doing it?
So look, it's not going to win the case for you, but it's going to allow you to get to the data points. Think of it as like a force multiplier, to get you to the point of judgment faster. So we're measuring it not just on cycle time too. We're helping our clients measure it on, how often do they have to rework a case? How often, in a settlement or a negotiation type tactic, do they not have the right information at their fingertips? Those type of things. Also, there's tools out there that you can actually go and create the demand. We allow people to create a demand right from the medical records itself and total up all the bills and everything like that and present it, in a cohesive way. But you still need someone to look at it. So, but you're doing all the hard, tedious pulling all the data using the AI. It's really helping find those crucial details. It's like finding the needle in a haystack. So the client's not going to remember everything about their accident, and they also may have said something to a doctor that could harm them. In the fact, like it's just as an example, they were out, with their wife dancing, but they just told the carrier that they couldn't do that. They couldn't do that anymore, and they were stuck at home. So this helps the PI attorney also find some of the things that could harm the case in the long run, and they could use that as part of the triage as well. So we just find it, and it's like one of those back office processes so that you don't have to, it's really taking kind of the work away from it. And I want everyone to think like, so I go to a lot of conferences and everybody's like, do you do medical chronologies? Well, there's a lot of different, words out there on a chronology. A chronology could be just summarizing the document or just putting the documents in chronological order along with document type. Then the next phase is you could summarize just each individual documents and look at what was mentioned, what the treatment is, what the next steps are, those type of things. But where things are headed is now to the insights. So what is that doing? Is the person taking the medication that they were prescribed? Are they getting benefit from that medication? Are they not getting benefit from that medication? Those type of things. That's where we're kind of seeing things head now that we're actually working on, especially with the use of generative and LLMs.
Okay, thank you. JP, we talked a bit about how PI firms are to some extent more receptive to the use of AI than maybe some other practices. Why is personal injury an area where AI might be more useful than when compared to other practice areas?
Yeah, so piggybacking on what Viraj and Sean said, so no surprise to the audience, PI cases are dense with facts, very messy in how those facts are presented. It's not like a patent case, for example. You're dealing with a lot of unstructured and sometimes contradictory information, hundreds of pages of medical records in various formats. You could have multiple witness statements, deposition transcripts that don't align with what was said before, accident reports, different opinions on damages. And now sometimes, you'll even have multimedia evidence like, surveillance footage, dash cam videos and such. So, given, as I said before, given all this data, like even the most experienced team, you could struggle to keep everything straight, especially under time pressure. And then you'll have, you could have dozens of cases going on at the same time. So, this is exactly what AI is good for, to sift through all of this at machine speed. Whether that's, legacy AI or sort of the newer generative AI tools. spotting inconsistencies in the record. These are the insights that sort of Sean was alluding to. Inconsistencies across depositions and documents, surfacing admissions were sort of helpful phrasing in the various testimony and statements. Organizing timelines into something you can actually act on, and with that speed, you can act on it in real time in the proceeding itself. So, for example, in a deposition, like, this could mean that you have that aha moment while the witness is still on the record, you're still there, you can still ask questions, and not like many weeks later when you're, in trial prep. And going back to, also what Viraj said, personal injury, it has business and human factors that make this AI, I like the word leverage, even more valuable. So, first, obviously, many PI matters are continuously based. You have individual clients, so it makes sense as a financial model. So, more so than an hourly billing model, this efficiency, directly affects your bottom line. And you also because these clients are individuals, you have them going through these life-changing injuries or losses, and as Viraj pointed out, these stakes are very personal and emotional. And what you want to use your bandwidth for is to sit with the client, explain the strategy, walk them through next steps, have that bedside manner. And every hour, every minute that the AI can save you on this, labor-intensive sifting through the information and documents or cross-checking transcripts, all of that can be invested back into your clients and put in that soft touch, into these relationships. And that's where that human value is. Last I would say is, I think it said a lot. I mean, the goal of all this technology is not to replace your judgment or your empathy or your human touch. It's to free up more of that. So, if you can get these facts organized, get the contradictions highlighted, get these goals. For example, you said at the start of the deposition, you can walk into your client conversation, your courtroom session more prepared, more confident, and more focused on the work that only you as a human can do.
If you don't mind me jumping in, just to say,
no, jump in, please do.
No, JB, you alluded to something that I loved and that we've seen, which is there's obvious uses of AI where I'm about to spend 10 hours doing this project and I could see value in you taking a head start, and now I just do 1 hour of review. There's also what you alluded to of the context switching problem we see at a lot of firms, which is I actually have a bunch of micro tasks that each will take 15 or 20 minutes and they need to follow up on this thing. But if I'm going between 100 different cases, all of which are equally important throughout the day, it's going to be impossible for me to be managing each one of those. So it's worth thinking about AI in those two veins. I see a lot of people in firms jump immediately to the first of I would spend X time on a Medcron or on a demand or whatever it may be. The second can be equally powerful of it's just not humanly possible to think about all 100 clients as one person in the day. But if someone could check in on the status of each one of those and act on them and move the ball forward, that's worth thinking about in parallel too.
Yeah, totally agree. And that's where we'll be seeing agentic, I guess, in the coming months, right?
Good.
So to jump off that point about the volume of cases that PI firms are juggling, Jim, can you talk a little bit about case management software and how that can improve efficiency for PI firms?
Sure. And, realistically, having case management software is table stakes at this point. I would say it's not a great practice to just run your firm on spreadsheets and that kind of thing, which no offense if anybody's doing that, but I think when you start having a centralized source of truth of all of the case information, all the documents, you've got task lists and workflows, and you know where all of these things are, which is what Viraj and JP were just talking about as well, is being able to context switch and actually just screen to screen. Now I went from Jim's case to Sean's case, and here's the overview of Sean's case, and I can get up to speed and get my mind around his case in 10 or 15 seconds because I've got all of the information in one place. A single source of truth is incredibly powerful in these things. So I would encourage anybody who doesn't have a full cradle to grave system that is something to take your practice to the next level. It just is. That's how you scale, and just kind of segueing on all of that, AI supporting those workflows are going to allow you to work those cases and then operationalize the minutia involved there. You know, just some of the stuff like JP was talking about as well is being able to not take the human element out of it, but open up, and I'm just making things up, open up Sean's case. And, you know, in Neos, we have a feature that says, you know, here's the estimated settlement from what we can tell from all of the medical and all of that. But I noticed you don't have any insurance information and you don't have their employment information. Did they actually lose work time? Were they off? Because these things can drastically change what a settlement could be. And just a lot of times the data is there, but also having some AI support you in the absence of data and potential things that could influence the way you're working the case is huge. And that's where you augment the human, right? Is, hey, you might want to double click on this with your client because there could be something here that benefits them.
Yeah, I have a point just to add on that because just medical part. So, you know, if you get a bunch, so you get a box, you get a banker's box full of records, you know, in a PDF now, and you're going through all of that, but they missed a few visits or they missed telling you about a certain provider. This kind of stuff allows you to recognize that and go out faster again, because the injured party is not going to remember everything. They also may think they need to hold certain things back, but the more you guys know about the case, obviously, the better the end result is going to be. So, and what the other thing just paired to that is what do you do with that information after? Can you use AI to kind of pare down what the most likely or the best insights to kind of double down on out of those things? So
I do remember the fun days of bankers boxes.
yeah.
Yeah, good time.
Yeah, that was my first job. Actually, I was still in high school and I was imaging mortgages for a Canadian bank. I grew up in Canada, and I'll never ever go back to that life again. It was the worst life experience I ever had. So.
So while I have you, I'm going to keep you on the hot seat here. Can you talk a little bit about how AI review tools can be customized and what benefits that can give to folks?
Sure. So, you know, I talked a little bit a few minutes ago about, you know, the difference between a chronology, between a summary, and now between insights. You know, but what we're actually working on now, and what people are actually asking for, is let me create my own template. I have a certain way that I like to go through these medical records, as an example, and I have certain things that I want to ask of them that I do every single time. So creating your own documents within a platform that you could actually go through to be able to do that. Also creating a way to validate those facts that are in there. Did the AI pull out exactly what was there? And having someone, you know, sign off on that, so to speak. Like think about like a DocuSign thing. That's what these platforms and AI kind of allow you to do now. We have another thing with, so demand letters. There's a lot of companies claiming to create demand letters out there, but every firm likes to create the demand the way that they want to create the demand. So customization is important. You can't just get an off-the-shelf tool, those type of things. You know, some of the Claude products and the ChatGPT products and the off-the-shelf products, I'm probably going to get sued now. You know, they're generic, right? So get something that's specific to the firm itself, or to the legal industry itself, not something that's broad-based. A lot of AI can, you know, paint a picture, draw a picture, get you a photo at the same time as, you know, being able to summarize a deposition type of thing. So just be careful.
Barrage, I saw you nodding. Do you want to chime in on that?
Good. One, good eyes, Susan. Two, yeah, look, the traditionally software has been like a tool that's kind of a, hey, please take it and use it and hope you get value from it. And over time, you will submit like requests for features and engineers will work on it. But largely, it's been like hard to individually customize. I think one of the promises in AI, and I actually don't think this quite fully exists yet, and so we'll see it scale, is that it should allow unprecedented personalization. This should be more possible for not having to take one input and result in one output, but that output should feel very intrinsic to the things that are true for your firm, the way Sean alluded to, how concise do you want this particular demand letter? What kind of verdict analyses do you like to pull? Like all of those should be true on some scale. We've seen it with firms having drastically different intake criteria, qualification criteria, different ways that they like to move cases along, or how they handle treatment, or how they manage liens. And so I do think this will make everyone on this call's job harder, but I think your expectation should be very high of any service or tool you use in this space, and not really be willing to take this is one size fits all as a good answer anymore.
So we have a question from one of our attendees that I'm going to share. Would you speak to the confidentiality and privacy protections attorneys should make sure are in place when they use these type of tools? I'm particularly concerned about AI tools using my clients' information and my work to further develop the large language models. And Jim, I'm going to ask you to take that first.
Yeah, great. And that is a great question. And people should have their eyes on the ball on this because it is a valid, very valid concern. So one thing to make sure is I would say use tools that are built for the thing you're doing, specifically a Neos or Viraj or JP or Sean. These are tools that are built for legal tech for AI. What that means is don't go type a bunch of stuff in Chat GPT online and think it's going to be private. Don't upload a bunch of documents. Those are out in the wind. We have the ability, because we're part of workflows and because we have access to your data, to sort of use distilled, smaller, focused models that are aimed at the exact thing we're doing. Sean with medical records, a medical record model, and Viraj, these are very specific distilled models. They are sort of large language, but they're at an intent and they're at a focus. And so by saying we're only going to pass enough information to use democratized prompts to create this chronology, for example, you're not sharing the entire case. You're not sharing any more than you have to. And specifically when you're interacting with these larger things, for us, we're an Azure shop, so we use all of the Microsoft AI tools. Is we are constantly enforcing that on these API calls we make, Microsoft is not allowed to take this data and train models with it, right? You can set these flags. So it's a good question. You should ask all of your providers that, but I would also say the safest way to do it is use distinct, focused, distilled models aimed at the purpose of what you're doing.
So we have another question from one of our attendees, and that is, what can AI do?
Susan,
Oh, I'm
can I
sorry,
just-
Sean, did you want to chime
I
in
just want
on
to
that?
piggyback on something, because
Yep.
one of the most important things that came out of that question was, do you want your data to train the models? And you don't. So I really, there's so many organizations coming out there, that'll charge you $50 to do this, as an example. Well, where is that data going? And do you want that data training someone else's model? I constantly get no. The AI company that you're choosing should have a valid data set on their own without having to use your data to build up the organization. It should also be trained, and the model should be trained. So keep those in mind as you're looking at things, because you don't have to train these things anymore with your data. It's already been done. If the organization is, I'll leave it at that.
And Viraj or JP, do you want to jump in on that before I go to this other question?
Yeah, not to belabor it, but I mean, obviously agree with everything that was said. I think there's sort of like, there's the general concern that people have about training, that, forget about legal privilege or anything, that your confidential information that you put into these tools, if you're using the free version, by the way, if you use the paid versions, the enterprise versions, the APIs, that's, at least according to the terms of service on ChatGPT and such, generally you're protected. But if you put it into the free version, there's the theoretical chance that it shows up later, like, like a message bottle that you threw into the ocean. Do I believe that that's like very likely? Probably not. But I think the bigger issue in the legal use cases is even that theoretical risk, when you allow, like, if you open the door even a bit theoretically, privilege and work product just goes out the window. So that's the real risk. Like, even if like it never really happened, the fact that you did that is kind of like protecting a trade secret. The second you open that door, you're screwed. You're screwed. The client's screwed. So that's, just to clarify, like, that's where I see the real risk, and that's where you're making sure you're picking a vendor that is they have zero retention on the data. They're making sure they're using the enterprise version of the APIs. All of, like, any responsible vendor is going to do that, and that's how you ensure that you're not exposing your client data to privilege waivers.
I have
So-
nothing to add to the discussion other than I feel like if I said nothing and the other three did, then people would think we are not protective of your data. So I will chime in and say I agree with JP, and we also are very protective of your data and client's data.
Good point. Thank you. So we have another question from our audience, and it goes back to the medical records issue we were talking about earlier. What can AI do to help gather medical records and bills from various medical care providers? And Biraj, I'm going to ask you to start that one.
Yeah, the I there's no, as far as I've been able to tell so far, there's not some magic voodoo secret AI sauce to retrieving records. It same word of
Too
leverage.
bad.
It is, yeah, it is it is able to do what your amazing paralegals or case managers would have done, but faster and more proactively and like follow up on it daily. And so examples of what this looks like on our end is if you complete an intake and you learn, maybe a client knew which hospital they treated at, but might not know the EMS service that took them. Examples of what AI can do are automatically detect and look up the billing department for that hospital, place a voice AI call to that hospital's billing department, confirm if there is um, if there's an ER physician's department or a radiology department we also need records for, and get their fax and phone number. And then fax over HIPAA authorization, and then follow up with voice AI calls to nudge that along in the same way that if you had an amazing paralegal, you would be asking them every couple of days, hey, have you followed up on the medical record? If they confirmed it, is it coming over? And for the EMS, where someone doesn't know, and if you're in an accident, you likely don't know the name of the ambulance that took you to the hospital. What we can do is know the ER that you went to and do an AI assisted web search to figure out what are the 5 EMS departments near that and place voice calls to them to figure out if they're the ones who treated. And so we're able to kind of like better do I think AI can help you cut out a lot of steps that would have taken a person a full day to follow up on. And most of the value in terms of actually like retrieving those records and bills in a more timely manner is going to come from that like follow up. And so again, I wish there was some magic sauce that if you do it this way, they guaranteed come within 14 days, and that doesn't exist. And so follow up is still a very much human process, and we just augment that.
Sean,
Yeah.
you want to jump in on that too?
Yeah, I'll just jump on top of it. I mean, I mentioned it earlier, just you don't know if you have all the records in most cases. So getting the insights out will allow you to, at least with AI, will get you to see if, Viraj Bindra was the doctor in this case, but you don't have the entire record there. And it allows you to then go place through the existing channels. I would watch this space though. So watch the record space because it is getting quicker. It is getting faster. You see the government starting to get involved with the electronic health records and things like that. And I know it's been said over and over and over and over again. People are probably sick of hearing it, but just watch this space. The other thing I'll say is don't go after all the data if you don't need it. Why spend all the money to find all this data if you have what you need in a small data source that you already got? That's some of the other things we're seeing with AI is if you could get access to an EHR as an example without having to go pull the full physician statement, why wouldn't you do that and get it faster? And then if you find something in there, pivot and go a little deeper, those type of things. So that's the kind of stuff we're seeing AI used for right now. So hope that's helpful.
Jim and JP, you want to hop in on that?
I'm actually good.
Okay. All right. So let's we're starting a little tight on time, but I think we can cover a little bit more here. JP, can you talk a bit about and we touched on this, but delve a little more into the things that lawyers need to make sure they're considering in terms of the risks of AI? I mean, we've touched on that, but Jim mentioned, confidentiality, but can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I'll mention a few categories, that are top of the mind. So first, we've all read about lawyers submitting these briefs with completely fabricated case citations, and it's increasingly amazing every time we see a new one of these cases, but I'm sure we'll see more. I'd say that's probably the most dramatic example of what happens when you skip this very important validation step. Maybe someday we'll figure out the hallucinations thing, but that's not today's. Whether you're getting the facts for the law from AI, you need a clear, traceable sourcing so you can check that authority before it goes anywhere near some kind of filing or submission to the court. In other words, what we always say: trust but verify. Ideally, and a lot of these tools, what they'll do is they'll, for example, like when we're when we're surfacing like an inconsistency, we'll point you back to the exact place in the testimony and the document that we're claiming are inconsistent, so you can actually click on them and make sure that the tool's not just making it up. And you just want, in the deposition or trial prep context, I'd say you want to make sure the AI is not misrepresenting the prior testimony, cherry picking excerpts, or missing a critical nuance in tone or phrasing. So again, that's why you want to make sure that you have this auditable, this ability to audit the output against the original record at all times. Second, I think bar associations are making it increasingly clear. Lawyers are expected to understand the capabilities and limitations of any AI tool that they're using for client work, or technology tool in general, I'd say. That means knowing where it's accurate, where it can fail on hallucinations and such, and how to best supervise that output to mitigate against these risks. The analogy I was used is just like you wouldn't delegate like a key piece of work product to a junior associate without any review. You can't just delegate blindly to an AI system either. And third, just touching on that confidentiality and security and privilege issue we talked about before. You want to know exactly how the tool that you're using is handling the data. How's it being stored? Is it being used to train other models? Is it encrypted in transit at rest? Very helpful if your vendor can show that they're adhering to the common security frameworks, whether it's ISO 27K, SOC 2. In this case, as Viraj mentioned, obviously HIPAA is very important to make sure you're compliant with. And in litigation, again, like I said, this directly ties to the privilege, work product, any extant protective orders, and your general ethical duties to safeguard your client information. So, high level, I'd say, treat your AI like you would, a very fast, very bright, but inexperienced junior attorney on your team. So you give it guidance, you check its work, and, you never forget, you're the one who owns the final judgment.
I like the junior associate reference. Jim, Viraj, Sean, want to chime in on that at all about risks?
Sure. I think JP covered it really, really well. And, we talk about human in the loop. Sometimes that's formal, when we've got a service that you subscribe to that has a human review. But even when you're doing inline workflow stuff, specifically on generative and this kind of thing, is you be your own human in the loop and review your associates' work. It's a valid point.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. So that's actually one of the things that we've realized earlier on is who is fact checking or double checking that the AI is doing what it's supposed to be doing. So it's something we have actually in development right now. I alluded to it a little earlier with like a DocuSign tool. So the most important facts that you can't get wrong, surface those and have someone validate them, link to the original source and make sure that that's what was really there. That's what we're seeing now. And then signing off on that, locking it up, throw away the key, it's done, right? That's what we're seeing kind of happen within the AI now. So to keep that human in the loop so that you can, put this in a court, you can, put this up against a regulation, up against a bar, that type of thing.
And same on our end. I think just the way we've ended up solving it is internalizing that human in the loop. So paralegals, case managers that are supervising these AI agents are folks who've worked at big, amazing PI firms across the US for 15 plus years. So you're getting that like extra layer of a gut check on anything the AI does and training off of how the way they behave.
Yeah, one last thing I'll say, and I don't know if this is going to be controversial, Viraj, so I apologize in advance
Do
if
it.
it is. So the human in the loop, I mean, my personal opinion on it is you have to be the final human in the loop as being the attorney. You can't rely on an outsourced party or a service. There has to be someone to fact check that so that you can stand in front of your client or listen on the other end of the phone and know that it was done properly. So human in the loop is used very, very widely now. And so, the company has a human in the loop and they're approving the quality and okay, that's all good and well, but do you actually, approve of what was pulled out of there? I would keep that in the front of your mind.
Not as spicy of a take as I was hoping for, Sean. I agree vehemently. The what we found is when we went to market with kind of like not having our version of that, what would happen inevitably as a firm is a firm owner would delegate someone on their team as like a paralegal or case manager to oversee the work. And so in our mind, this is skip that step. But either way, it's your license to the line. You got to approve every decision we make. You got to look at the demand. This is not a set and forget and hope you never revisit it again. So with you.
So Viraj, can you talk a little bit about, and we've kind of talked around this a bit, how automation and how AI can improve outcomes, actual outcomes in cases for lawyers?
Yeah, we've talked about a few of them, so I'll just voice over and then talk about one that I think is more interesting. But some of the most obvious ones are time on desk. If there's only so many cases you can move and get to and look at and do the admin work for in a day, then by default there's going to be cases where you could have retrieved records faster or opened claims sooner. And in some cases that can make the difference of someone accepting a settlement too quickly because you didn't get an LOR out. So like the time on desk is really important for a lot of firms. Outcomes in the case, I think Sean better covered this, but the missing bills, if you didn't capture them and didn't know they existed, can make a giant difference in the outcome of a case. The outcomes in a case as in terms of the actual settlement value. The one that I'm selfishly as Finch we're the most excited about, and I'll allude to where our name comes from here, but Finch derives from Atticus Finch and the idea of expansion of justice and everyone deserves an outcome. And right now it's tough when you look at the financials for a lot of firms to justify saying yes to a case that might be under $10,000 in damages, depending on the state. But if it's a $10,000 value or lower, it's sometimes hard to justify the cost of acquisition and marketing plus the cost of actually working the case. I think one of the things that happens if you get to a much more profitable systemic back office, if you simplify a lot of the tedium there, is suddenly can become profitable to take those cases on. And the outcome that changes for you is the number of clients you serve. And that's turning efficiency from like an okay sounding word to growth, which is a great word. And that means lower value cases might be the way you expand. Or if I'm making, my CMs can take on more cases, then that's more money that I'll go spend in marketing. And now I can serve more clients that wouldn't have heard of me. Or I might launch in new states without having physical staff because I'm able to scale my practice a little more remotely than I thought I was able to. So anyways, the outcome I think for a PI firm that is not as obvious when you think of the day-to-day is, can I actually go serve many, many more clients? And if so, am I expanding the access to justice for the 80% of people who don't engage with counsel after they're in an accident?
So I'm going to jump off that a little bit for the question for Jim about client intake, because that's kind of related to what you were just talking about. And how can case management tools improve the client intake process, which is critical for PI lawyers to make sure they're taking cases that are going to work for them and they're not, they're screening out cases that they don't want to.
Yeah, and really that's just double clicking on a lot of what Viraj just said as well, is making sure that you're viewing this through the potential outcome of it for the expediency of how you can get there. AI is a great help for things like this. And what you're going to find is, making sure that you've got an intake that asks the right questions. You don't want to have it be overwhelming. You don't want to have it be a bot on a website, as we were talking about earlier, or a phone call bot to do an intake. You want to have the human doing an intake, because that is ultimately the brand of your firm, is how you interact with these customers, right? AI is never going to be your brand, but it can help streamline to make sure you're getting the right information, no more, no less, and that you're putting this on its best path to get a successful outcome for you and that customer. And what we have seen as people who fully leverage AI, and we're hearing this from our own firms, is they're saving the effort of what equates to 2.5 full-time people a week, which allows them to take more cases on to get better outcomes. And a lot of times it's exactly what Viraj was saying. These are cases that they would have not taken before because they didn't have the bandwidth for them. And by just leveraging the robotic automation of minutia, you're able to get so much more bandwidth with less time on desk that you get these outcomes. And making sure that you're streamlining the process from intake to settlement or intake to litigation is just huge to service that.
Thank you. So in the time we have left, I'm going to ask each of you to share with our attendees what's the takeaway, the most important takeaway you want them to have when they finish watching this program. If you could sum it up, this is what you need the PI lawyers watching this to go away understanding about what this can do for their practice. And I'm going to start with Sean.
No, I knew you were going to start with me.
Did I have that look?
Yeah. Call me. No, I'm just kidding. I think I want people to try it and actually use it, put it in production. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of AI. It'll give you an edge out there, and it'll give you, things that you've never thought of in the past. Believe it or not, there's still people out there that haven't even tried ChatGPT. So it blows my mind every time I hear it, but pick a use case, get out there, try it. If it doesn't work, if you don't see measurable value, kill it off, move on to the next. And just because you failed once, try it again. I mean, you failed once, that's one time. But again, the last thing is do something in the back office. Do something that is not going to hit your client, because clients are watching for this, by the way, and they're watching the news. Like, I'm surprised if some people are probably even asking, what do you use for AI when you're going through this, right? So people are a little, weary and a little skeptic, but go and try it.
That's a good point. This is definitely very much in the news. So potential clients are seeing that. JP, what about you? The top takeaway you want folks to have from today?
Yeah, ultimately, AI is here. It's here to stay. It isn't here to take your job. I'd say it's here to clear up that mental clutter, so you can focus on the things that only you can do, as an advocate for your clients. Convince a jury, cut a deal with the opposing counsel, keep your client calm when things get rough. And just to Sean's point, the firms that turn AI into a competitive advantage, treat it the same way you would prepare a case for trial. You try it out, stress test it, try all kinds of different tools so you really understand and keep up to date on what's possible, and figure out the blind spots in these tools before you actually have to use them in the money time. Last thing is contingency work most of the time. So, like we said, speed plus accuracy, that's a game changer. And, the right tools to leverage this, that'll give you more of both. And that really adds up fast.
Jim, key takeaway for folks.
Yeah, we're all going to say the same thing, is I think do it. You're going to end up using this one way or another. I think it's going to happen, and embrace it. Walk into it, realize that it's here to help you do everything that is not primarily what makes your brand. I mean, you have a differentiator, you have a brand, you have slogans and values, as Viraj was saying. Find things that AI can help you do to let you do more of the brand as a firm. Let you do more of that and have AI do the rest.
And Viraj.
Nothing tremendously new. I'll say stay client-centric. It's the same theme as everyone else said. Stay focused on your clients, and AI helps you do that. It shouldn't take away from it. And like, there's I think the other point of, like, if you haven't fully figured out how AI works at your firm, you are not early. Like, as in, it is not, the tech and tools have gotten good and better, and it's a good time to dive in now. And you shouldn't be in a, like, I'm not sure if it's useful yet, but you're also not late. Every firm we talk to is still figuring this out. Like, both are true. The tools are better, and you should be able to start to think about your stack of the future. But also, every firm we talk to is still figuring this out. I haven't found one that is like, we've perfectly figured out our AI strategy, and here's how we grow for the next 10 years. So that's all.
All right. Well, I want to thank all of our panelists today. Thanks, Sean, JP, Viraj, and Jim. The slide that I think is going to pop up in any second will have their contact information. Everybody who attended will get a copy of the program today, so you'll be able to reach out to our panelists. If you have questions, I encourage you to reach out to them individually. As you can see, they're very well versed in these topics and very happy to respond to questions from folks. So please do take advantage of that. Again, thank you for attending. Thank you again for our panelists. It was incredibly interesting. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. And if you're on the East Coast, I hope you stay cool. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Susan.